Hey guys, welcome to the Real Hadeel podcast. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Kristina Bouweiri. She is the owner of Reston Limousine, and she also owns Sterling Women, which is an organization that gathers a lot of business owners who are specifically women to network with each other and get to know each other. So please, Kristina, take it away. Tell us a bit more about how you got started and how it led to you starting Reston Limousine.
Okay, great. Well, I started out living overseas. My parents were in the Foreign Service. So I was born in Japan. I lived in Brazil, Portugal, and 10 years in Africa. So I came from a really exciting childhood. Went to George Washington University, got a degree in international affairs because I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps. But instead of joining the Foreign Service, I went to work for a nonprofit organization that worked to uplift the status of women in Africa. And they sent me to Somalia. So I went back to Africa with my first job. And I did that for 2 years and decided that that was not what I wanted to do for a living. Came back to the States, and the only job I could find was a 100% sales commission advertising job. I was selling advertising, and I was cold calling out of the yellow pages, and I made an appointment with William Bouweiri, who owned Reston Limousine.
Wow. And that's kind of like how you went from sales to meeting this man, and then what happened after that?
So it took me 2 months to close that deal. He made me keep coming back to his office over and over. And finally, I got the check, which is how I got paid. And on that day, he invited me out to dinner. So we went to dinner and we started dating. And a couple months later, he said, quit your job and come work for me. I can't afford to pay you, but I'll pay your bills. I thought that was a great offer. So we moved in together. We worked together. We spent 24 hours a day together. And I worked for several years without a paycheck. And but what I loved about the limousine business is that the harder you work, the more money you make. So when I met him, he had 5 cars and was mostly a corporate business doing a lot of hotel and airport work. And I said, why aren't we doing weddings? And he said to me, I don't like to deal with brides. And I said, I will deal with brides. You know, women love weddings. We like to plan them. We like to go to them. We like to be in them. So I started buying lists of brides and cold calling them. And within a year, we were doing 50 weddings a weekend.
Wow. He sounds like a true Lebanese man now because he's dealing with a ton of weddings.
Yeah. And then we were just in the office one day, and this guy knocked on the door and said, do you want to bid on a government contract? And I'm like, what's that? He said, my wife works across the street at U.S. Geological Survey in Reston, and there's a 2-van shuttle going into D.C. all day long, and if you win, I want to be a driver. And I said, great. So I bid on that contract, and I won it, and that was my first government contract. And I said, well, there have to be more of these. And I started researching government contracts. And so I subscribed to the Commerce Business Daily. This is in the 90s, before the internet. And the next 5 years, I won every government contract in the city.
Wow.
I was doing work with DOJ, U.S. Attorney's Office, Health and Human Services, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, IRS, you name it. It was incredible. It was incredible how fast we grew and how exciting it was.
Wow, that's phenomenal. You really showed how much you had to hustle to get to that point where you're growing the business. That's amazing. So I remember you telling me early on when we met, you took the business from 1 million, was it at the time, and then you took it to 30 million, or how explain to me the process?
So the first 10 years we were in business, we grew it from 200,000 in revenue the first year to 5 million. Wow. It took 10 years to get to 5 million. And it was around that time that we now had 4 children, and we moved to Leesburg, and my husband wanted to take a year off. And I said, well, you know, I can't be in the office without you. And he's like, if you need me, just call me. I'm a phone call away. And so I said, okay, I'll try that. And so 2 months later, I said, don't come back. And he was like, really? I can retire? And I said, yeah. Because what I noticed was when a husband and wife own a business, it's like the employees have 2 bosses. And so he was the mean one, I was the nice one, and I'd spend my whole day negotiating on behalf of the employees with him. With him gone, I could make the decisions, and I was happier, the employees were happier, and I was really happy that my kids could have a stay-at-home parent.
Right.
So we made that decision in the year 2000. And so what happened next was a year later, 9/11 happens. And it was terrible. You know, our revenue started to free fall. The airports were closed. Nobody was traveling. And our fleet just sat there for about 6 months. And it was a very scary time. And all I could think about was, if this company goes out under, it's going to be blamed on me because I'm the one running it.
Right.
So that gave me some extra adrenaline and fighting power, knowing that I had to save the company for me and for my family. And so the next 5 years were very difficult. We didn't make a profit, but we just hung in there. And by 2006, we made a profit again. And so there was no growth in our revenue during that time. And we were somewhat breaking even those years. And then, and then I bought land and I built my own facility. And from that moment on, which was 2005, business was great. And then 5 years later, I had built the company to a $15 million company.
Wow.
And that's when I asked for a divorce. When we stopped working together, we started to grow apart. And I was able to get a loan from the bank and buy him out. Now today, I've been divorced 5 years, and the company is now doing close to $30 million.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Good for you for being very strong and realizing what was making you happy, what wasn't, and taking the lead on your life and what you knew was good for you, for the company, for your family, for everything.
Well, I'm happy it had a happy ending.
No,
it was rough. We won't go into details, but it's had a happy ending.
I mean, anything good or amazing, it's going to take some time. It takes a lot of hard work, and it takes some bumps in the road to get there, right? So
absolutely,
it wouldn't be that amazing if you didn't go through all that, because you wouldn't have, cherished it. And
I wouldn't appreciate what I have. Yeah, you're right.
Appreciated what you have. Exactly. That's phenomenal, though. That's an amazing story. So my question is to kind of dig deep into how you grew it from 200,000 to 1 million to 10 million, 15 million, and then go up to 30 million. What strategy did you use? Like, what would you say is your go-to thing that helped you get that far? What helped you change from that net worth to the next?
So we were very lucky that early on, Reston Limousine always focused on a diverse fleet. We always had a bus. We always had vans. And our vision for the industry was that people would be getting away from limousines and going more into the bus solutions. And that vision has really paid off, because we were always going after shuttle bus contracts. So once we learned how to do government contracts, we knew that soon we would no longer be a small business. All those contracts are small business set-asides. So we had to diversify and look for other companies doing shuttle bus contracts. And we found out that most universities have one. A lot of residential apartments do a metro shuttle. A lot of corporate offices do a metro shuttle. And so we focused on finding more corporate work. And that's how we grew our business. We didn't take a lot of risk in that we didn't buy the vehicles first. We waited until we got a new contract, and then we would buy the vehicles. And so that kept our expenses in check. And we were doing a great job in getting a lot of referrals. So that helped a lot. And during those 5 years that the business was not profitable, I started networking. And the first 10 years I was in business, I was too busy to network. I was still doing everything at the office. I was answering the phones, taking reservations. I was dispatching. I was doing payroll. But when the phone stopped ringing and the business was slow, I had to get out there and figure out, I had to drum up some business. So I started going to networking events. I tried to go to 4 a week. And I found it to be very interesting, because not only was I getting more business that way, I was learning things. I was learning about trends. I learned about social media, and I jumped right in. I learned about blogs, and I started one. I met people that could save me money. I met another guy with a limousine company, and he introduced me to his insurance agent, who was able to save me $10,000 a month.
Wow.
And I would volunteer on committees. So I used to volunteer on the membership committee, and I sat on one of those with the banker. And when I won a new contract, he was able to approve a loan for me in 24 hours. So there's a lot of benefits to networking. Networking is not just about finding new business. It's about learning. It's about finding new vendors and learning better ways of doing things. So that led to me joining a business book club. I also joined a mastermind. And I also joined an organization called Vistage, which is a CEO membership organization. It costs $3,000 to join, and then you have to pay $1,500 a month. But you're in a room with 18 CEOs. They're all from different industries. And you have a speaker in the morning that teaches you something amazing. And then in the afternoon, we solve each other's business problems. So that's a peer group, and it's an advisory board. And it's where I think I've done most of my learning on how to grow my business. But the networking piece, honestly, was incredible for me because I always followed the philosophy that I would never ask for anything, and that I would give first, and that I would give freely, and I would give without expecting anything in return. And so when I say that that's what I did, I would donate limousine rides or wine tours to all of the organizations that I was a member of. And so each month they would hear this door prize being given out with my name. And I've been in business 28 years, and we have donated over 1.5 million in transportation.
Wow.
To charities, to networking organizations. It's just a really big piece of what we do here at Reston Limousine. And so by being someone in the community that was always giving back, that has always gotten me a lot of attention. I've been nominated for lots of boards, and I really enjoy that piece of owning a business. The other thing about networking, though, is that the super quality networking would be really when you're sitting on a board. And so by working hard, like when I first started networking, I worked very hard. I co-chaired galas. I was getting everyone new members. I was donating a lot of limousine service. And by working hard for that organization, they offered me a board seat.
Wow.
And so it was really the board level networking that is where I've been able to get bigger opportunities for Reston Limousine.
So it seems like when you're networking, you're being very strategic in where you're networking, A, and B, you're figuring out ways to put yourself in a position where it's almost like you're meeting the people who are also just as well connected.
Yes.
One step further in your career or your business or whatnot, getting more referrals.
Absolutely.
So it's not just, and I want to make this clear to everyone who's listening, is that you're not just focusing on, let me just go to this next local business networking event. You're thinking, okay, what's a good networking event that's going to fit my business, that's going to get me referrals, but also I can refer back too, because I know who they're working for, and it's just easy for me, right?
Absolutely.
It works well, it's natural. That's powerful. How did you find, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, I know you listed some of these amazing networking events and some of these masterminds you're a part of. How did you look for these? If someone was trying to research for their own industry, let's just say, who did you talk to, or what did you do, what did you Google maybe to help you kind of figure out these types of networking events are perfect for you?
So the people that I was meeting are the people that were turning me on to all these opportunities.
Wow.
You know, I would meet people I just met people at a networking organization, and they said, we're putting together this business book club. Do you want to join? I'm like, yes. And then another group said, we're going to do a mastermind. Do you want to join? I said, yes. You know, I'm very open, and I'm a lifelong learner. And I sort of have the philosophy that I know nothing, and that I want to learn all the time and keep learning. And I think that's a good approach, because if you think you know it all, you definitely don't.
Right.
And I think business is so challenging because there's always things around the corner that you didn't predict are going to happen, that if you don't do networking where you're attending seminars and lectures and speeches and, you know, events like that, you're not going to be able to predict what's coming around the corner.
It's hard to anticipate what's going to happen and whatnot. It's very hard, but to know that things might come your way and to have a strong team, like you said, definitely will help you get through it all, I think, 100%.
Can you still see me?
I can still see you. Can you still see me?
Yeah, I was just trying to shut down my email so we wouldn't be hearing those noises.
Don't even worry about it. But thank you for doing that. My biggest question to you is, as a CEO, it seems like you had a lot going on just growing your business. what would you say are maybe three or two, doesn't matter, would you say are the biggest challenges you had to face, and how did you overcome them?
So one of the biggest challenges I had to face was my bank dropped me as a client back in that 5-year period where we weren't profitable. They called me up and they said, Kristina, we no longer want to be your bank. And I said, well, why is that? I don't pay you late. I pay my bills on time. And they said, well, we think the next terrorist attack is going to be in Washington, D.C., and you have 50 buses in Washington, so you're going to be hurt by that. And you're just too much of a risk for our bank.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that sucks. I mean, that was literally one of the worst days of my life. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And they said, until you find a new bank, we're going to fine you $5,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
To extend your line until you find a new bank.
Wow.
So I just thought that was a real rude awakening as a business owner, that a bank had the right to do that, or that anybody would do that in good conscience. So I had to go out and find a new bank. And I interviewed 20 banks, and 19 told me no.
Wow.
And then this amazing guy, Dave Summers with Community Bank, said yes. And what I learned in that whole process was that there's always going to be a bank out there that will pick you up. It has to be a bank that understands your business. And Dave had other transportation companies as clients. And it has to be a bank that may be a little bit less risk averse. And he was, because he was growing his bank to sell it. So he wanted as much business as he could get. But I really wasn't risky for him, because he had other clients like mine, like me. And so he knew our business well enough to understand it.
Gotcha.
And so that was one of the biggest challenges I had, and that's how I got through it. And it was a lesson that it was a lesson for me to I had to accept that any bank could change their mind at any time about whether or not they want to do business with you. So the most important lesson is that you need to make sure your company is profitable. You need to let the equity stay in the company and build value so that the banks are not nervous. That was a great lesson for me to learn early on. Another major issue I had was I had a general manager that was embezzling. And this guy was like a complete con man. He applied to work for me as a part-time driver. And he hands me this resume. And it says that he went to Georgetown University. I looked at his resume and I'm like, why are you applying to be a driver? He goes, oh, well, I have a Monday through Friday 9-to-5 job as a sales manager, but my wife is pregnant. She's having our second child, and I just need some extra part-time work. And I said, oh, okay, well, maybe you could do our tours. We used to run tours into DC every night. I said, we do that every night, and we do it on the weekends. Maybe that would be something you'd like to do. And he said, that sounds interesting. And then he said, I really like this company. And if you ever have an opening for a manager, I hope you'll consider me. Wow. So I was like, okay, but that kind of like went into the back of my mind. And the next thing I know, I start seeing him at my kids' preschool. I had mentioned in his interview where my kids go to preschool, and he put his kids in my kids' preschool. So I would run into him every morning dropping off our kids.
Wow.
And he kept saying, if you ever have an opening, I'd love to work for you as a manager. And 9 months later, I had an opening for a manager. So I called him in for another interview and decided to give him the job. So he came on board, and he actually was a really good manager. He was great with the clients. He was great with the employees. Everything at the company started to improve. I was really happy. And then my controller walks into my office and quits. And I'm like, why? And she's like, I can't work with him. I said, well, let's talk about it. She says, no, I've made up my mind. I'm leaving. And she left. So I went into his office and I said, this is terrible. The controller quit, and now I'm going to have to do payroll again. And he said, oh, I'm sure I can figure it out. And I said, no, it's really complicated. And he goes, give me a chance. So he figured out payroll. And a few months later, I was going through the paychecks, and I noticed he had 2 paychecks. So I went to him, and I'm like, why do you have 2 paychecks? And he said, oh, it's an electronic thing. There's this new system where you do everything online. And I clicked the button twice by mistake. He says, don't worry, it was already voided. And I thought, oh, that could be okay. Well, a month later, I found 2 checks again. So then I went back to his resume, and I decided to go talk to the people that he used to work for. They were also in the same city of Sterling, Virginia. And I just got in my car and drove over to their office, and I said, I'm here to ask you about this guy. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, we sent you a letter by FedEx. I said, what? And he said, and you guys wrote a response and FedExed me a letter. So this manager intercepted my letter, which is a felony, and then wrote a response back. So this is how dangerous this guy was.
Oh my God.
I fired him on the spot, found out he had embezzled $16,000, which obviously isn't that much.
Yeah, but
it could have been way worse.
Could have been way worse, that's true.
But he sat down and wrote me a check for the $16,000. But that wasn't the worst part, okay? Apparently he'd been embezzling everywhere he'd ever worked. And so one of his other employers actually had him arrested and thrown into jail. But the worst part about letting him go was that I found out later that he had sat down and offered large raises to all of my staff. So one of the reasons why everything was going so great and everybody was so happy, he had sat them down and given them like a 3-year improvement plan to take their salary from here to here. And they knew that now he was being terminated, that was not going to come true, because he was promising huge raises that I would not be able to afford. So the worst thing about the whole thing was that I then had a mutiny, and about 10 of my employees walked off the job.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So it was bad. So my husband and I had to take control of the company, and we each worked 12-hour shifts. There was always one of us there, and we were doing 2 or 3 jobs each until we got everything under control and hired some more people. But the lesson learned there was I didn't do the background check. I didn't even call his references.
Wow.
And it's because I saw him every morning at preschool.
You just thought, right.
I just thought he was, okay.
Wow. That's a powerful message, because these days, so many people don't think that a lot of people are going to do good, because just wouldn't, you wouldn't run into that. You wouldn't run into someone who's just like that, who's manipulative and, and just like a con artist. That's an important lesson. Wow. How long ago was that? Was that during the 5-year time?
No, it was right before. It was 1999.
Wow. That's very scary. That's very scary. So what happened? You let him go, you fired him, but did you ever put a lawsuit against him or anything?
I did not, because he wrote a check for what he took.
For what he took, okay.
It was just all so strange.
Wow. And you know what's the scary part too? The most important part about your story is that as you get bigger, more and more people want to get involved in your life. And doesn't mean everyone should be involved in it. Because they could not be good, or they're just not good for you either way on the path to your success.
True.
That's a powerful story. I mean, it's a scary story, but it's powerful to my viewers to hear, because that's something that they need to know and be aware of. You can't always.
Yes. You can't be trusting.
Can't.
You just have to have all the systems in place where this type of thing can't happen.
No, that's a very powerful message. That's very powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story and being open about it.
No worries.
So tell me a little bit more, Kristina. So I know you started Sterling Women, right? How has Sterling Women helped you with the whole networking aspect of your business?
So Sterling Women was actually someone else's idea. This woman that worked for me, she just mostly did networking for me. And we noticed a long time ago that 85% of our clients are women. When I say that, it means that the person ordering a car is either an administrative assistant, office manager, HR manager, or It's the wife, sister, mother, girlfriend. Women are the event planners in families and at work. So 85% of the vehicles that are reserved by Reston Limousine are done by women. So we went to a lot of events for women. And this employee of mine said, why don't we, instead of, she says, you're sending me to 8 events a month. This is what it's costing you to pay me. This is what it's costing to go to these 8 events. Why don't we have our own event and all those people will come to our event? And I said, you must be crazy. I just couldn't imagine having to put on a monthly networking lunch. And she said, look, I'll do the whole thing. I'll plan the whole thing. All you have to do is get me a speaker and show up to introduce the speaker. And so that's how it all started. And the first month, I thought, you know, maybe 40 women will come, and we got 80.
Wow.
In the second month, we had 100. The third month, 150. And by December, we had 200 women coming to this lunch.
Wow.
So I feel like I created the perfect networking event for women because it's all about showcasing women in business. There's no membership dues. And people can just come if they feel like it. So there's no obligation. And there's an hour of shopping from 11 to 12. And the reason why I do that is because I'm a busy working mom. I don't have time to shop. And when I go to an event where they're shopping, I buy everything. I buy purses, I buy scarves, I buy candles, I buy face cream. I mean, I don't have time to do all that shopping. So I love the shopping component. In this way, women that sell things can sell things at the lunch. And then we sit down for lunch about noon. And then at 12:30, I introduce the speaker. And our goal was to have women that were running multi-million-dollar businesses as speakers. And that's what we had in the beginning. But now it's been 10 years. So we kind of ran out of women in Loudoun County that were running multi-million-dollar businesses. So now I have a real range of speakers. I have a lot of speakers most of them are entrepreneurs. Some of them are, you know, like business coaches, or, you know, they have some really great message to share to the group. I've never had a single bad speaker. They've all been incredible. So we hear the speaker, and then we have door prizes. I have never asked anyone to donate a door prize. People just bring them. We have like 50. You were there last month, right?
I was like, there's so many door prizes.
There's like 50 door prizes. And then it's over, and you can get back to work. And so people can either come at 11 and shop and network until 12, or they can come right at 12 and just sit down and have lunch and hear the speaker. We're flexible. And I think that is why it's been so successful. At least 10 of my speakers have written books and become authors. So many amazing things have happened in that room. Some women have decided to start a business when they didn't have one. Other ones have sold their businesses. It's just incredible. It's just a great place where women have this community of support, and they can learn whatever they need to learn, whether it's how to publish a book, or how to lose weight, or is it how to, you know, save your marriage. I mean, whatever it is, there's everything in that room that you might need for your life.
I loved it. It was it's what you created was a beautiful community, because everyone there was just so nice. They were just so giving, and the speakers especially had such big hearts, and you could really tell that they've been through a lot, so they were able to really be empathetic and understand where you're coming from, you know, just talking to them. It never felt like I had to fight for their attention. They were just so open to talking to anybody that came up to them, and which I really appreciate. And I knew that because they're like this was because of the leader of the organization. I knew because of you. I mean, naturally you attract people who are similar to you, and I understood that after meeting all these women. You did a very good job. It was really great especially for my first time going. It was really great.
It's funny because I have 13,000 women in my database.
Wow.
And another thing I learned about networking events is that when you have a database like that of a specific group of people, that's valuable. You know, I've had a lot of people try and get my database. And, you know, obviously I won't share it, but there are times that I will support nonprofits or important messages and send them out through the email to my group. And some of the newspapers used to come to my lunch. Like the very first couple of years, Washington Business Journal was there every month. BizNow on Business was there every month. Loudoun Business was there every month. And they would do a story on my speaker.
Wow.
So that was great. Now, 10 years later, I don't really have too much media coming to my lunch, which I'm sad about because I always loved it when they would come and do a story on my speaker. One of my speakers is this woman, Sherry Garvin, and she owns a pharmacy in Leesburg. And, you know, I had lived in Leesburg 15 years before I ever met Sherry. I didn't know she owned the Leesburg pharmacy. I was getting my prescriptions at Giant.
Right.
Well, now that I know a woman owns Leesburg pharmacy, I'm going to give her the business.
Right.
And her business has really grown since she spoke. She now has a company called the Compounding Center, and she mostly does prescriptions that have to be compounded. And she has the largest compounding center on the East Coast. She's won so many awards. And, you know, I had to really force her to speak. She's like, I don't really like public speaking. And I'm like, just get up there and do it. You have to push them out of their comfort zone.
You do.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. You wouldn't know that there's so many powerful women in this area because they don't advertise it, which is nice too because they're very modest and they just really love what they do. That sometimes they don't really think to, hey, let me just let the whole world know about it, you know, which is, it's powerful. You bring that side out of them, which is nice because other women need to hear that.
Yes.
They need to feel encouraged.
Yeah. It's lonely at the top. You know, when you're a female CEO, you don't want to like call your male CEO friends and bitch and moan about your problems, right? So it's nice to have a female CEO to call and, you know, share and support each other.
I agree. It's lonely. It can be hard. And as a woman, you have to deal with so many other things, especially if you're a mom. You've got 1,000 other things to worry about, and you have to worry about your kids. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You need other people who could feel for you and understand where you're coming from and has been through it.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. Going on that topic, how did you, I mean, you went from growing this business and then, you know, divorcing and moving forward. How did you find your moments where, I'm sure you had these moments where you felt very lonely and almost like you probably needed a good support system around you. How did you build that support system? Because I think that's very important. Many entrepreneurs don't have that.
Yes. And in fact, that also ties into the networking piece. If you're a mom with 4 kids like I was, and you don't have a support system, it's not going to be easy to grow a business. I did have a support system. I had my husband stayed home with the kids, so he drove them to school, and he did the grocery shopping, and would take them to doctor's appointments. And then I had a Filipino housekeeper who lived with us, and so she cooked for the kids, and she cleaned the house. And she's like family for us. She's still with me part-time. And I had my mother-in-law living with us. And so my beautiful mother-in-law would cook, you know, an amazing Lebanese meal every night for dinner. And she loved being with us and with the kids. And so that's incredible for me. And then at work, I had an executive assistant who managed my time, my calendar, and did some personal errands for me that I didn't have time to do. So that support system is how I was able to be a mom, but also run a business and not be sitting at my desk worried about my kids. Because if you have to worry about the people that are taking care of your kids, you can't focus at work. And that also allowed me to go to networking events early in the morning and in the evening after work. And my message to women is that if you want to grow your business, you have to have a support system, because some of the best opportunities are at 7 o'clock in the morning and at 7 o'clock at night. And you've got to show up. Not every day, but a couple of times a week. It's really important to go to those events. That's when I went to most of my board meetings and other very high level networking events. And they have really paid off. So women need a support system.
I love it. That's a message. Thank you for sharing that. I have another question for you. So when you're talking about having the support system, which is very important, how do you keep your mindset always in check? Because it seems as if and I know you've probably heard this many times, when a woman is running a business, sometimes it can be maybe intimidating, or even just knowing that you're powerful enough in your abilities and your understanding of your own business in the industry. How are you able to make sure that your mindset, you have an abundant mindset and you're powerful? How do you constantly have that laser like focus?
So I have a gratitude journal that I write in every single morning and every single night. I think the gratitude journal is an incredible way to focus on what you're thankful for, because you know, just by writing down the things you're thankful for twice a day, I think is incredibly powerful. I also meditate twice a day. I do 20 minutes in the morning. I do 20 minutes at night. And I have so many people that are in my world. Like, I have a business coach. I have a life coach. I have a personal trainer. I have a speech coach. You know, that's my other support system. So when I'm like having a bad day, or I'm second guessing myself, or there's a challenge at work, I have those people that I can talk to who are professionals, and their advice is amazing. It's funny because when I first met my first business coach, like in 2002, I thought, I just thought it was weird. I was like, you know, they couldn't possibly understand my business. Right. I was closed-minded about it. And fast forward to 2006, I had one of the most difficult employees working for me who was not politically correct. He smoked in his office. He quasi-sexually harassed women. He was just a very difficult person for me to manage. But he was incredibly smart, and he brought in a lot of business. So I was like stuck. So I reached out to this woman I met at a networking event. And I said, Linda, how come you're so smart? And she's like, oh, well, I did professional development for Citibank in New York for 20 years. It was my job to make the managers better. I said, all right, come in and help me write this employee evaluation that I have to do for this very tough employee. So she sat down and she showed me how to do it. You know, a written document with about 6 long paragraphs, always starting out with the positive and then talking about room for growth. And when I delivered that employee evaluation, I got the exact results I was looking for. Wow. And you only have to show me something once, you know. Now I knew how to do evaluations. Right. But I did hire Linda to do other things for me. I had her come in and redo all my job descriptions, create goals for all my employees, and we became a much stronger business. And it was about a year later that I joined Vistage. And then through Vistage, I have a business coach, and we do offsite retreats with our managers. We come up with our goals, our strategic initiatives. You know, the company is pretty corporate now with the way we approach all those things.
That's what you something very important. You came in and you put systems in place to kind of help you make it very easy for you to do your job, which then in results helps with your mindset and your growth for yourself, because you're not so stressed about working in your business versus just working on your business, which is powerful. So you really invested a lot on coaching, I can see.
Absolutely. And it's funny because my mindset in 2002 was that nobody could understand the limousine industry. And in 2006, I thought, wow, you know, business coaches give you complete shortcuts on how to get somewhere quicker, faster, smarter. And I just embraced them completely and thought, you know what? I want to improve myself. I want to improve my business. I want my employees to have, you know, a way to grow as well. So I offer coaching to my employees as well. And it's awesome.
And you said something so even more important. You invested in your employees. That's why you have like your assistant was absolutely phenomenal when I came in. She greeted me. She said hello, you know, all these nice things, and I was just like, wow, she has a really nice like a group of women and men in her company. I wonder what she does to bring that type of excitement, enthusiasm, and optimism out of them. So it seems like you invest a lot in your employees for training.
We do, and we have a philosophy that it's family first. So if an employee has a problem, they know they can go take care of it. That's important. Like, for example, my assistant, Sharon, she lives a few blocks away. She goes home every day for lunch to walk her dog. And then her daughter, who doesn't drive, was going to community college. And she said, can I go home and drive her to school every day, like in the middle of the day? And can I go back and pick her up? And I said, of course. Of course. Right. You know, we focus on performance. We don't watch people's hours. And, you know, so she loves working here because, of course, she loves me and I love her. But she always says, Kristina, I love you. I just like the job. And I'm like, well, I want you to love the job. So anyway, so I'm very flexible with my employees and want them to take care of their families first. And I think that's something a woman brings to the table. And I wasn't like that back in the day. Before I had my own kids, I did not understand when people had to take their kids to the bus. As soon as I gave birth to a baby, I felt it, you know. Yes, it's my baby, and I want to take him to the bus.
Right.
So I think moms are great leaders because we have families, we understand the importance of everyone taking care of their family.
I love that. What specifically have you done training-wise? I know you said that family comes first, and that's very important. Do you have like weekly meetings with your team? What little things do you do on a routine basis that's helped you and your team grow together?
So I'm going to give you a great book to read. It's called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits by Vern Harnish. He used to live in Ashburn, but I think he's traveling around the world now. He talks about the importance of meetings, when to have them, and how to do it at the same time every week. And so every morning at 9:30, we have a stand-up meeting for everyone in operations. I'm not in that meeting, but at 9:30, all the managers are on a conference call because I have 5 locations, and they're talking about what's going on for the day. You know, important clients, vehicles that need to be serviced, logistics basically. So that's really helpful. And then every Tuesday, I conduct all of my managers' meetings. So I have my marketing meeting at 11. At 12, I have my managers meeting. At 2, we have a finance meeting. And then we also have an executive committee meeting later that day. And so Tuesdays are the days that I'm always in the office. And I honor that. And that's the day we're all going to come together and we're going to work through, you know, our issues. So that's been great. And we've had, when we do a manager offsite retreat with my managers, that's when we hire a facilitator who teaches us things, helps us, you know, with our goals, our strategic initiatives. That's been really, really key to my team. But the other thing we do is we believe strongly in leadership programs. So are you familiar with Leadership Fairfax?
No, I've never heard of them.
Okay, where do you live?
Springfield area.
Springfield, and your office is where? Also Springfield? So there's Leadership Fairfax, there's Leadership Arlington, Leadership Washington. There's a leadership program in many, many areas. And there's even one in Fairfax, I think, for emerging leaders as well. So I've gone through the program. Most of my managers have gone through the program. And some of the other employees I have that are not managers have gone through the program. And basically, it's one day a month when you go to this leadership program and you learn about the community, you learn, and you're surrounded by other leaders. So the networking is amazing. And so I'm investing in my employees to make them a better human being by exposing them to all of the charities around here, all the politicians, learning about the challenges we have in Northern Virginia, whether it's traffic or workforce housing, but then also having them work in a group of other leaders to put on an issue day for the organization. So those programs, I think Leadership Fairfax is around $4,000. I'm not sure. The one I did in Washington was $6,500. And I send my employees through that program because I think it's a great experience, and it's something they'll cherish for their entire life.
Wow, that's powerful. I didn't even know that. I'm definitely thinking, thank God I'm recording this because Leadership Fairfax, and then you said the Masters of Rockefeller. Mastering the Rockefeller Habits is the book by Vern Harnish. And the other book I love to recommend is called Never Eat Alone by,
you have it? It's either Keith or Gus Ferrazzi. That's my favorite networking book. When people say, how do you network? I send them that book. And it's all about, giving first, not expecting anything in return.
This is a powerful book. My coach actually gave me this book, Joe. So it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, that book is great. And there's a sequel now that says, Who's Got Your Back? And in that book, at the very end, it recommends that people join these peer groups that I'm in. So Vistage is my peer group. There's other ones called Entrepreneurs Organization, which, have you heard of that? Because that would be great for you too. EO.
I think that the CEO of the whole organization has a podcast, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I know them.
Yeah, that's very powerful as well. So those groups are great. I highly recommend them. That way you're in a group of business owners and you can help each other solve your different business problems.
That's powerful. So it seems as if what you're doing is not only you're creating a support system, but you're also creating an environment for yourself where it's constantly putting a fire under you to kind of like work harder and smarter, because you're gaining not only the knowledge and wisdom from all these other people, but it's almost challenging for you, like challenging you to move forward. You're seeing how powerful these other leaders are, and you want to be the same way too.
Yes.
That's very powerful. And I truly admire the fact that you, even now, like you still invest in having coaches and mentoring. That's powerful, because that just tells me you are a student to the world, and I think that's something that most people tend to forget to do even when they're doing great.
Oh yeah, there's always a way to improve, and there's always something new to learn. I'm in this other group called Cadre, which is another networking organization, and the speakers are incredible. Gary Vaynerchuk spoke. I don't know if you know Sally Hogshead. Do you know Sally? She was a great speaker. I love that. I just eat it up.
That's phenomenal. So that's definitely something I think most of my viewers are probably going to find very valuable in what you're saying, is not only networking, but how to network and who to network with, and what type, for instance, where should you put your money, where you should invest your money in to get you in front of those right people. I love it. So I guess my last question for you is, what's maybe 3 advice you would give to women out there, or even men that are listening to this, going into their business, or maybe are in their business now and trying to scale? What are 3 tips you would give them?
Definitely network. Networking is my number 1 piece of advice. Like you said, be strategic. I suggest no more than 3 organizations to be a member of, maybe 1 chamber, your business association. And then I always like to recommend that people choose a favorite charity. So everyone has a favorite charity. My mission at Reston Limousine is sick children. So any charity that helps sick children, I sign up. Make-A-Wish Foundation, Children's NIH, Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, anything involving sick kids, we always want to help. So everyone has a different passion, and I think it's important for people to align themselves with that one charity that they feel passionate about, and network, attend their events, and volunteer, and do something good for the world. And, if all goes well, you'll be offered a board seat, and that's a great way to give back and grow and meet the other people on the board. So definitely networking, be a lifelong learner, read everything you can about your industry and about the economy and about your, market forces. And then the other thing that we like to do is we like to visit limousine companies in other cities. So we go out, we visit limousine companies in other cities, and we learn about how they do things. And I always pick up something great from seeing how my competitors in other cities are doing things. That I think is a great tip.
It's powerful. I like that. Not treating your competitors as enemies, but treating them as your friends and just learning from them.
Yes.
That's powerful. Kristina, thank you. I really appreciate you and your advice you gave. And I know so many people are going to find this so valuable. So I really am honored to have you on the show. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
All right, guys. So you know where to find us. So Kristina, last question. Where can they find you? Do you have Facebook, Instagram? What's the best avenue to reach you?
So I have a website, restonlimo.com. I also am on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I've got a Reston Limousine Facebook page. I've got my own Kristina Bouweiri Facebook page. So I'm out there. So I'm definitely very active on social media.
Perfect. I will put an infographic after so everyone can see and they can find you and locate you in all those links.
Awesome.
All right, guys. You have it. Here's Kristina Bouweiri. And guys, if you want to reach her, you know where to find her. Have a great one.
Thanks.